Talk to me, man. Guess who's Bizak? Back on the block with them all. Better by the ball. Don't make me relapse. Cause the street shit is all I know. Alright, look, I haven't made a video for a while, innit? I haven't spoken to you guys for a while, so I thought I'd do a quick state of play kind of video because I'm conscious of the fact the last few videos that I've made have just been about UFC 249 and coronavirus and it's coming and it's going and blah blah blah, this that and the other and whatever, and I'm kind of sick about talking. I'm kind of sick of talking about it. So I just thought, because I haven't made a video for a while and I've been jotting little ideas down in my phone about things that I might want to address on my YouTube channel, because I'm the undisputed heavyweight champion of MMA content when it comes to YouTube. Clearly I'm not. I've got like fucking you know what, yeah, I had 329 subscribers at some point last week. I peaked at 329 subscribers, and then it went down to 328. And I was a bit like, someone's unsubscribed here. And then it went down to 327. And that was like a catastrophe. And I was like looking through all my data to see why this may have happened. And then we went back up to 328. And it was a little bit all right then. And then this morning I woke up and it's back down to 327. And I thought to myself, I better talk about something, because people are sitting there waiting for me to talk and I'm not talking and they're just unsubscribing. Obviously that's not the case. It might even just be like bots, you know, bots might be subscribing to my channel and then unsubscribing to my channel just to get my attention. Let's move this down a little bit. Yeah, man, we're in the game now, innit? Look at that config. Look at the config. All right, so what are the things I wanted to talk about? What have I been jotting down over the week, you might be wondering. So firstly, UFC 249, it looks like it's definitely going to happen. And I just had a couple of observations about UFC 249, because one of the things that people were moaning about when UFC 249 was going to be on April 18 in LA, I want to say, on that Native American reservation. One of the things people were moaning about was the lack of a sanctioning body, and the fact that the UFC had been, you know, running towards regulation for so long, and then at the first sign of trouble, they've decided to give regulation the elbow and self-regulate. And it was something that I spoke on myself. And the only observation I had about that was the fact that I had watched Weighing In, which, by the way, I believe is fast becoming one of my favourite MMA podcasts. Oh God, my laptop's on loud. Did you guys hear that? I just got an email from work at this time. It's nearly 7 p.m, god damn it. Anyway, yeah, so I spoke about a point that Big John McCarthy made on Weighing In, about the fact that because UFC were effectively self-sanctioning or self-regulating, they were approaching referees that were based on the West Coast, and those referees were apprehensive about officiating on that card because it wasn't aligned to the is it LA State Athletic Commission? Basically, yeah. So they were basically going to run an event with crappy referees, and that was my only kind of issue when it came to not having a commission involved with that fight card. Now that it's in Florida, I've seen people moaning about the fact that the Florida State Athletic Commission isn't very good and they're not very experienced. For me, that's a moot point. Like, what are you, like, these are just people that are just finding things to moan about now at this point. Do you know what I mean? Like, so when they're doing it in LA and self-regulating, and they self-regulate and they sanction their own fights in Europe all the time, and I don't know whether, I'm probably in Asia, and maybe South America as well. Do you know what I mean? These state athletic commissions are only kind of worth anything in the States. So they're self-regulating across the world, and they're basically doing the same thing here in America on an Indian reservation. And I told you guys why I felt that was an issue, because of the lack of quality in officials that would be involved in that event. Now that they're gone to Florida, and it seems as though Florida's athletic commission are going to be sanctioning the fights on this event, you can't now turn around and say, oh, well, Florida aren't very good. Because if that was the case, you should have been moaning about this exact point when the UFC went to Florida in the past. And if I was good at this, at doing this YouTube shit, I would have Googled when the last event was in Florida. Better yet, I would have Googled how many times the UFC have gone to Florida, and said, why didn't you say this the last 5, 10, 37, 48 times, however many it is? Do you know what I mean? Why didn't you guys moan then? I would, if I was good, if I was better prepared, I'd have done that. So that's that. So that's just one observation. See, these are little like niggly bits that I didn't really feel warranted a full dedicated video. Do you know what I mean? Like, does anyone really care apart from me? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? But apart from that, it seems as though the UFC have made a genuine effort, a genuine attempt to look at all of the risks involved in holding an event in this current climate, and they've tried to put in steps to mitigate as much of that risk as possible. Another thing that you have to take into account is the fact that they've got a card full of fighters that are going to fight next week Saturday, and then the following Wednesday, and then the following Saturday after that. So they've got say 60 fighters and all of their teams that are willing to participate in these 3 events, right, across 3 events. All of these fighters clearly have the information to hand. I'm assuming whatever documentation or whatever kind of steps the UFC have put into place have been communicated to these fighters. And these fighters have had all of the information to hand, and they've made the decision to fight on these 3 events. These are grown adults, and if they believe that the risk that they're taking to fight during these events is insignificant enough for them to continue on, and it's worth the purse that they're going to get for these fights, then fair play to them. Who are we to sit here and judge other people about this event when these are adults who have all of the information that they would need to hand to make an informed decision, I suppose is the best way to say it. So I'm done moaning, man. I moaned a lot about UFC 249 happening on April 18. Clearly there are still risks, and there still are kind of questions that we have that Dana just refuses to answer. But it is what it is. It's going to happen next week Saturday. They've got the blessing of ESPN. They've got the blessing of the kind of political figures in Florida that need to kind of give it the seal of approval. So we move. Do you know what I mean? We move, and that's that really. The other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit was Robert Whittaker. Now, I made a video around the time when Robert Whittaker dropped out of his fight, and I believe it was against Jared Cannonier. And all of these rumors. So the video I made wasn't about him dropping out per se. It was more about these rumors circulating about the reasons why he dropped out. And I suppose the premise or the point of that video that I made was about why are people, even if they have sources or they have information about the reason why he's dropped out, and at that time the reasons people were coming up with were very personal to Robert Whittaker, about his children or one of his children being severely ill and things like that, like him having to donate bone marrow to his daughter. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and I remember at the time I made a video saying that surely there's a point, if you're a journalist, where your morals and ethics should outweigh the value of getting clicks on your fucking article. And that news, if it was true at that time, the point I was making should never have made its way into the public domain. Now, Robert Whittaker's come out and he's spoken to an Australian newspaper a couple of days ago, and he's basically just said he was burnt out. So firstly, all of that fucking conjecture and rumours that were coming out about Robert Whittaker potentially being injured or having issues with his family, like, how stupid are those people now? The people that exclusive breaking news kind of fucking stories about Robert Whittaker, like, how stupid are you now? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what Donald Trump is talking about when he says fake news. That was genuinely 100% fake news. And, like, it's disgusting, innit? It's fucking disgusting. But going back to the point about Whittaker and how he kind of... I've read the article, but I did read it a couple of days ago, and I know he's done an interview with Ariel Helwani, but I haven't got around to watching it because it was like half an hour, 40 minutes, and I like to leave those juicy ones for the evening, you know? When I'm in my when I'm in my room, I've done my stuff for the day that I need to do, and I've got a nice juicy interview to look forward to. That's when I usually consume that kind of content. And so I'm looking forward to watching what he's had to say. Really and truly, I should have watched that and then spoken about it, but it is what it is. Yeah, so with regards to that, him being burnt out, etc., the one point that I wanted to raise is, like, Dana White gets his critics. He's got his critics and he gets his criticism, and a lot of the time it's justified. Some of the time it's not. Like, there's that geezer who I think I've mentioned previously, a guy that works for Bloody Elbow. I forget his name, but this guy, all he does is moan about Dana White. Literally, he has genuinely got a vendetta against Dana White. Anything that Dana White does is incorrect, it's wrong, and it needs to be reconsidered and replanned and rethought out, and Dana White is the biggest monster known to mankind. There's people like that in the world. And then there's people that just kind of like the schmo. Anything that Dana White does is correct because he loves having the opportunity to speak to Dana White and get those minutes with him so he can get the clicks, hits, etc. on his YouTube channel. And then there's people like me who I think I'm quite kind of central when it comes to Dana White. I think I assess each action or each talking point on an individual merit and give my opinion on each of those. And on this occasion, well, there's two things that Dana White recently, I believe, has done really well. The first one, to stay on topic, is Robert Whittaker and how he reacted to Robert Whittaker dropping out of his fight, and I believe it was against Jared Cannonier, because we've seen Dana White blow a fuse when a fighter drops out of a fight. And we've seen Dana White talk negatively about some of his fighters when he's trying to make a fight and said fighter doesn't want to take a fight, or, you know, when there's a standoff between fighter and Dana. And this was the Robert Whittaker dropping out of the fight could have very easily been a situation where Dana White reacted negatively to it, because Whittaker hasn't got the best record when it comes to being booked in a fight and actually making it to fight night. You know, he suffered from injury in the past and whatnot. He's had his fair share of dropouts and stuff. And I'm not saying Dana White would have been justified if he reacted negatively to Robert Whittaker, but I am saying that it wouldn't have been too far different to how Dana White has handled similar situations with different fighters. But on this occasion, he was very, 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 very supportive of Robert Whittaker. And he had nothing but positive things to say about Whittaker. And he was very understanding. And he, I believe, handled that situation extremely well. And now that the kind of news has come out as to why Whittaker dropped out of that fight back then, I think it puts Dana White in a good light, and I think it's important to point out when Dana White does do good things and does do positive things, because it's very easy for people to moan and bitch about Dana White, because those are the takes that generally get the best coverage and the best traction when it comes to the viewing or reading audience. It's not very often that you'll write an article about how good Dana White is, or how kind this act is, and you get a lot of traction for it. So it's easy to always be negative, and that's what media kind of is like a lot of the time nowadays. But on this occasion, like I said, you know, he deserves a massive two thumbs up, Dana White. Do you know what I mean? Well done, man. You handled that really, really well and efficiently. And I think the way he handled it contributed to Robert Whittaker. I don't want to use the word recovering, or Robert Whittaker it contributed to him stopping feeling. It contributed to him to stop feeling burnt out the way he was, and get his ass back in the gym and make the amendments that he needs to make the adjustments that needed to be made in order to get him in the right headspace to get into another training camp and get ready for another fight. And that fight is against my guy, Darren Till. And I'm really excited about that fight. I've made a video about this previously, but that is one of the fights. I think it's in the top 10 fights that I'm looking forward to most for the remainder of this year. Before I touch on Darren Till, I just want to quickly say the other thing that Dana White deserves a lot of praise for is when he's questioned about the staff that work for the UFC. I haven't seen or heard any other CEO, boss, leader of an organization like the UFC be so adamant and supportive of his team and his staff. Like, every time Dana White is asked about his guys at the UFC, he's just like, no one's getting furloughed, no one's losing their job. I'm 100% supporting my guys, they're my team. And he just seems like the kind of guy that if you work for him and you're on his good side, he'll literally do like the most for you. And you don't get a lot of people in the corporate world that behave like that towards the people that work for him. And again, that deserves another massive two thumbs up. My computer nearly went on sleep mode there. Sleep mode. All right, so that's that. Darren Till. Quickly about Darren Till, man. Is he the funniest person on social media right now? There is a very strong possibility that Darren Till is the funniest person on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm not just talking about MMA or boxing or sportsmen. I'm just talking generally in life. Like, I can't think of anyone right now that posts funnier shit or has funnier tweets than Darren Till. Even actual comedians and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I don't think there is. I don't think there is anyone that knows how to use social media the way Darren Till does. And here's the thing. Darren Till isn't just like, what's the right way of saying this? He's not just really good at social media. It's because he's being himself. Do you know what I mean? It's not like he knows, all right, if I post this at 4 p.m, everyone always will have been just winding down for the day. They want to have a glance at their phone. So that's the time to post because you get best traction. Like, I've read articles about this kind of shit because I've got an Instagram and Twitter, which is at the Battle Camp, and you can follow that at your leisure. But I mean, I'm really shit at social media. Like, I don't tweet very often. Probably the last time I put something on Instagram was maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I don't even know, man. Sometimes, like, I've got a personal Instagram, and then I got the Battle Camp Instagram, and there's days that I don't even look at my Battle Camp Instagram or my Battle Camp Twitter. Do you know what I mean? Then again, there's days, no, that's a lie. I always look at my personal Instagram, but then there's days I don't look at my personal Twitter. Like, not days, actually, hours. More like kind of, I might just look at my personal Twitter twice in a day. I'm more active on Instagram than I am on Twitter. But the reason why I'm saying all this stuff is because Darren Till is unapologetically himself, and he's funny on Instagram and Twitter. And I saw Dan Hardy on YouTube with the Fight Disciple guys talking about Darren Till and his activity on social media, and one of the guys basically said that because of how he's been behaving, it's improved his stock as a box office draw. I'm not so sure whether I buy that, but it's not doing him any harm. That's for sure. I don't know whether him being active on social media or him being just good, funny, providing us with good content on social media. I don't know whether that is going to translate into him or translate into him making his star bigger when it comes to his next fight. And I say that because his star for me is already up there with the best of the best when it comes to MMA. I'd say there's a top tier Conor McGregor. Then you got the next batch, which are kind of Khabib for me, Tony Ferguson. But that might just be because I'm a geek when it comes to MMA. But there's like a second batch of people that are their name translates into pay-per-view buys. Maybe John Jones. I know Khabib. I don't know. I can't. Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, that kind of name. Did I say Israel Adesanya? If I haven't, him as well. And then there's like a third tier, people that are creeping up. And I'd put Darren Till in terms of his profile and his commercial value or attractiveness. And there's no metrics. I'm not using any formula or anything to work this out. This is just my perception, so I might be completely wrong. But I'd put Darren Till in the third kind of bracket. And I'd say like he may have risen a little bit within that third bracket because of his activity on social media. But I don't know whether he's been able, I don't know whether his activity on social media has enabled him to make the jump into the next batch. I think the only way you can do that when it comes to MMA is by winning meaningful fights and doing it in either doing it in a really exciting fashion in the octagon or doing things in the build up to a fight to gain the attention of the casual audience. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the only way to really bring your star level up when it comes to combat sports. Either be in a fight with an opponent that has generated controversy and a lot of talking points and interest in non-diehard fans. That's really kind of, those are the two ways, either by doing it in the octagon on a consistent basis or being matched up with someone where you have this chemistry that enables you to get the attention of kind of casual fans. I think is that everything I wanted to discuss. I think it might be. There's one other thing that I wanted to actually talk about, and that's MMA Junkie. And for me, MMA Junkie is quite weird, really, because if a news story breaks, or if I see something on Twitter, an event or just like a current event when it comes to MMA, one of the first places I'll go to read about it is MMA Junkie. And I'm subscribed to their channel on YouTube, and every time I see an MMA Junkie video pop up on my browse section on YouTube, I don't really feel like clicking it. And I was thinking about this, and apart from Morgan, I don't even know who else kind of writes or works for MMA Junkie. And I don't know whether that's just me, or whether there's other people out there that don't really give a shit about MMA Junkie's digital content. And I just find that a little bit weird, because for me, they're the biggest news outlet. For me, it used to be MMA fighting, but obviously now that's no longer at the level it was in terms of the staff that they have writing for them. But MMA Junkie has been one of the top two over the last 10-15 years, and now they're the top one for me in terms of a dedicated MMA news source. And I just find it really, really odd that there's so many different people on YouTube that I'd listen to interview a fighter or coach or talk MMA before I even consider MMA Junkie. Let's list them. Luke Thomas, Ariel Helwani, Brett Okamoto, Submission Radio, the Australian guys. I don't know what their names are, but I check for their interviews before I check for MMA Junkie. Weighing in. Believe you me, I'll even watch Food Truck Diaries with Brendan Schaub before I watch an MMA Junkie video. And I just wondered to myself, is that just me, or is that everyone? Or do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't know. But yeah, that was just a cheeky little observation. That was, I mean, there's no, I don't have anything else to say to elaborate on that observation, but it is what it is, you know. But yeah, so this is literally like, these are things that I've thought about over the last couple of days, and I just haven't felt that it's meaty enough to make a video about it. Because look, let's be honest, right? Let's be totally blunt. Yeah, let's have it right, as Frank Warren would say. I average about 50 fucking views, 50 views a video. It's a baby thing. And if I'm gonna average 50 views a video, I want it to be meaningful. And then I think to myself, oh, shall I post a video about this if no one's really gonna give a fuck? Do you get what I'm trying to say? So I just kind of deter myself, when really what I should be doing is just banging out videos every day and not worrying about the views and whatnot, and just doing it. Because at the end of the day, it's a hobby, innit? Like, it's not like I'm getting paid for this, so who cares how many views? But it's just kind of like, I suppose it's a bit disheartening, because you think to yourself, oh, I'm gonna plug my mic in, I'm gonna get my phone over there, put it on flight mode in case someone rings me, and then it ruins my video because I don't have a separate camera. I'm going to sit there. Sometimes it takes like 5 takes because I get my words wrong, or I look like a dick. Do you know what I mean? Speaking of looking like a dick, look at the hairline, man. It's a mess, innit? It's a fucking mess. But we here, innit? We working. But yeah. So that's it, really. You know what? Next week there's a lot to talk about, because I'm going to be doing all the previews for the fights, and that card for UFC 249, it's a killer card. And I put out a video talking about Dominic Cruz and why I think it makes sense that he's the guy that's facing Henry Cejudo. So if you haven't already, check that out. Go to my channel and check that out. What else is there? My podcast, go in the description below, and then you can click on the link that applies to the app that you use to consume podcasts, and then you can listen to my podcast. And I haven't, to be fair, I haven't podcasted for a while, so that's fucking dying as well, innit? It's just this time, it's just these times. I'll tell you what, look, I bought some new socks. Can you see them? They're a bit like, they're like them long socks, and I haven't had long socks like that since I was since high school, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest. They're just over there on that table. There's another 2 pairs of them just sat there, and I might just not wear shorts and long socks anymore. I'm not sure if I'm feeling the look. But yeah, I mean, you can really tell that I'm running out of things to say when I'm talking about my socks. So do yourself a favour. If you've managed to sit here and listen to me for this long and you're not subscribed yet, then you deserve a medal. But aside from that, you should probably consider subscribing. Like this video, share it with a friend if you've enjoyed it, and yeah, comment below. Actually, here's a good one. Comment below, and if there's something that's happened recently when it comes to MMA and boxing, then please comment below and talk to me about it. And if there's something you want me to record a video on, then comment below and talk to me about it, and I will definitely record a video on it. The boxing world's been a little bit quiet, innit? It's been a bit dead, boxing. There's not really been much going on, not a lot of controversy. There's been Andy Ruiz and Dillian White going back and forth. There's been some Devin Haney said some racist stuff, which was a while back. What else has there been? What else, man? What else? Who's watched battle rap? And then there's a guy, he's barring, and then while he's barring, he might say a line, and there's a guy in like the background, and people are going like, what else? Oh, just me then, just me. All right, I'll move on. Devin Haney said some racist stuff. Yeah, that was out of order, childish. And you know what? That thing, what Devin Haney said, right? Here's one thing that I kind of took away from that, is his first statement, he was like, yeah, I said some things and I'll learn from this and I'll grow from it, etc. Just apologize. Just say sorry, innit? Like, you've said racist remarks. Don't have your first statement since you've made those remarks, and in that statement talk about how you've grown and how you've learned. Yeah, that's important, but first and foremost, the issue at hand is the fact that you've said something that is offensive. And if the shoe was on the other foot, you'd be offended. So if that's the case, you should apologize to the people that you may have potentially offended. That's the first thing you do when you say something offensive. I've probably said the word offensive too many times there. So that was the first thing that I took away from it. And there's people talking about how Devin Haney needs to be careful that he doesn't go down the wrong route. And that wrong route being the Adrian Broner route. And I mean, it's hard to put, what's his face? I have forgotten his name. Gervonta Davis. It's hard to put him in that same category because in the ring, Davis hasn't put a foot wrong yet, has he? But he has had his fair share of misdemeanors outside of the ring. And those actions that he's done outside the ring and his lifestyle outside of the ring, or his perceived lifestyle outside of the ring, and the fact that professionally he's made errors, missing weight on a number of occasions, etc. People are saying that Devin Haney needs to be careful that he doesn't go down that route, and I don't think he will, because of the fact that he's got his old man there, and his old man seems like a guy that is well grounded, and he has the authority over his son to make sure that Devin Haney doesn't make these mistakes. But I don't have any reservations about whether Devin Haney may go down the wrong road. But I do think that Devin Haney needs to be careful about what is the right way of saying this. I do think that Devin Haney needs to be careful about the things that he says when it comes to these kind of interviews and stuff like that with certain outlets, because he's a very likable, marketable person. And you don't want to alienate people, especially at this early stage in your career. And I say early stage because he has got to he's kind of at the top level, but he's still very young. He's got a number of years to go ahead of him, and he wants to give himself the best opportunity to capitalize on his talent and his marketability. And I don't know whether saying things the way he did is the best thing for him to do, especially at this stage of his career. Because it's not like he's the kind of guy that plays the heel, and the heel being the bad guy. He's a happy, smiley kind of guy who you'd say should be playing, not playing's the wrong word, but he's the kind of guy that you can get behind, you can root for. Do you know what I mean? He's not the kind of guy that you hate and you want to see lose, like Floyd Mayweather kind of was during a stage of his career. So if Devin Haney I believe, needs to kind of be careful because he doesn't want to alienate anyone. And talking about playing characters, here's another thing that I wanted to talk about, was Henry Cejudo. Now, yes, he's a king of cringe. Yes, this Triple C gimmick, it's all a gimmick. Yes, this fucking cape thing and the crown, the plastic crown and all of that stuff, it's all a gimmick. But he lives his gimmick. And this is what I'll be talking about when I talk about Kobe Covington. Because if you're going to have a gimmick, you got to live it 24/7. You can't have a gimmick and then do interviews and say how, yeah, man, the UFC were going to cut me, so I thought I had to switch it up. And then so I thought I'd just say this and say that to generate the interest. Then that kind of defeats the purpose of doing it in the first place. You don't do them things. Like, you shouldn't do that. If you're going to have a gimmick, then you got to live it 24/7. Do you know what I mean? This is the problem for me with wrestling, pro wrestling, WWE and all of that stuff, because people have a gimmick in the ring, but on Twitter, they're someone completely different. And when it comes to combat sport, if you got to be about it. Do you know what I mean? Like Master P said. And you got to be that person, keep that same energy the entire time. The only time you can slightly let that guard down is immediately after a fight, when you go to your opponent and you shake his or her hand and you give him or her a hug, and in the post-fight interview immediately you might be complimentary of his or her skills, but then after that it's back to the gimmick. Back to the gimmick. Never forget that. Never forget the gimmick. If you're going to have a gimmick, never forget it. That's how Chael Sonnen didn't forget his gimmick. He stuck to his guns and he played that role and he said those things every single time a camera or microphone was put in front of his face. You can't just change. You can't just change. Like, do you know what I mean? Otherwise, like, it's pointless. This whole exercise is pointless. And one thing that Henry Cejudo deserves credit for is the fact that he plays that role. And I believe he plays that role so well because it's an extension of who he is as a man. And that's what The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin to us. The guys with the best characters in wrestling are basically playing themselves with the volume turned up to 10. And that's what Henry Cejudo is doing. He's playing himself and the volume's turned up to 10. And I'll tell you why I know he's playing himself, or why he's not playing a character. He just turned the volume up to 10. The reason I know this is because I remember when Ariel Helwani was at MMA fighting, and the first time I heard Henry Cejudo on Ariel Helwani's show, I fucking felt like cringing then. I was cringing then. Yeah, man, I just want to be an inspiration to the kids, man. You know, like, I'm basically saying that I want to be the hero. Who says that I want to be their hero? And this is why John Jones is a guy that gets criticism. It's because on one hand, he's talking about Jesus Christ and how he's religious and how he's so thankful to his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Blah, blah, blah. And then you see him drunk driving and stuff like that. Those two things don't add up. So that religious gimmick or that religious side of him, and I'm not saying he's not religious, but the way he wants to be perceived in the public isn't how he behaves behind closed doors, which is what then gives us as the audience cause for concern when it comes to how legit he is in front of the camera when he's being interviewed. Does that make sense? This has actually gone on a lot longer than I thought it was. You know what? I'll upload this as a podcast. I'm going to upload this as a video on YouTube and I'll put it as a podcast. I wasn't meaning to talk this much, but because I haven't seen or spoken to you guys for so long, you know, I feel like we've got a lot to catch up on, you know? But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Just a little shit video for you guys, you know? Get some more pussy and views. Yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. I'll catch you guys on the next one.